Welcome to Optimize Your Success. I am Jack Scott, the Chief Operations Officer at the Mentor Project, and I'm excited to introduce your host and a mentor at the Mentor Project, Dr. Ruth Gotian. Dr. Gotian is an expert in the field of high performers. Each week, she uses a live panel filled with high performers to discuss different topics while posing challenging questions to each of the panelists. You are able to hear from each of these panelists about their challenges. You will learn how they overcame these challenges so they could excel and reach high achievement within their life. This is a podcast you don't want to miss. We're excited you're here with us today. Welcome to Optimizing Your Success.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Ruth Gotian, and welcome to the Mentor Project's Optimizing Success. I have once again gathered a great group of high achievers who are here to share part of their journey with all of you. And before we get into that and our topic today, which we're continuing from last week, as many of you probably recall, I actually research high achievers and elite high achievers to figure out what has made them so successful. So I've talked to Nobel Prize winners and Olympians and astronauts and CEOs and people of that caliber, just so that we can figure out how they've become so successful. And what I've realized is that there are 4 things that they do. And they all do this, and they may not even recognize that you're doing it. But when you hear the conversations of all of these high achievers that we have, you will notice that a lot of them are doing these same 4 things, and they may not even know it either. So first of all, they are all intrinsically motivated. They have a passion. They have found their passion. They have found their purpose. They've developed an entire career around it. They would do this for free if they could. The second is they have a level of perseverance. For them, a challenge is just another learning opportunity. So if there is another bump in the road, if their manuscript gets rejected, if they don't get a grant, if they don't get a client, if there is a pandemic that has wiped out half of their income, they know that this is just another step along the way. They know they're going to get to the other side. They'll get over it, under it, through it, around it. They will get to the other side. And they fear not trying more than they fear failing. So that's the second thing. The third thing is they still do things at the very, very basic level. So the physician scientists and Nobel laureates who I have interviewed, they are still designing experiments like they did when they were grad students. They don't turf that on to somebody else. And the Olympians are still doing the same basic drills you would see in a junior high school auditorium. Same basic level. And then the final thing is they learn in informal means, which means they're not sitting in a classroom. They're constantly learning. They're lifelong learners, and they will learn from anyone and everyone, people who are senior to them, junior to them, at their level. They will learn by talking to people. They will learn by reading. They will learn by listening to podcasts, YouTube, whatever it takes to learn new information. They're constantly craving that information. But the key is all the elite high achievers do all 4 of those things in unison. So you've heard that all the big billionaires read for 5 to 8 hours a day, and that's fabulous. But they don't only do that. They also do all of that other stuff as well, right? And don't worry if you don't like to read 5 hours a day. It's really about grasping information and getting new information. Now, part of that where they learn from other people is they recognize that they have gotten information and gotten wisdom and gotten perspective from other people. And they don't take that lightly. And they show a lot of gratitude to the people who have helped them along the way. And they also believe in paying it forward. So all of these people who have received this mentorship and this guidance from other people, they have taken it upon themselves to actually mentor others. And they either have a core group of people who they mentor, or they've developed these enormous programs to mentor scores of people simultaneously. So even after they get the Nobel Prize, they are still thanking the people who have helped them. So last week I talked to you about these little notes of gratitude that I received. So when I give talks and workshops, I believe that everyone should have an equal voice. It doesn't matter if you're the front desk receptionist or you're the CEO. If you're in any of my workshops, you get an equal voice. And one of the way we do that is by having lots and lots of Post-it notes. And the reason I have people use Post-it notes is because when they write things down, most people don't know each other's handwriting. So it becomes completely anonymous. So if I am the person, the front desk receptionist, and I am in the same group as the CEO, because I will put people like that together in the same group, I don't know the idea who it came from. And that's the key. That's the key to everyone having an equal voice. And part of when I ran a summer program, I ran a summer program for students from underrepresented backgrounds who wanted to be physician scientists, and we put them through a 10-week boot camp. And at the end of the summer, before they left, they gave me this jar. And this jar is filled with Post-it notes with their messages. And I received it a few years ago, and I still hold on to it and open it every so often because it's filled with little notes. And these notes just are little sayings of things that we said over the summer, things that meant something to them, or just little notes of gratitude. And none of them are signed. So I don't know who they're from. I know it's from someone in the program. I just don't know who. So this one is actually something that I always said, if you're on time, you're late. So I think that resonated with people. But they're actually not just quotes that I said, but they're actually all sorts of notes of gratitude in here. And I love that it's anonymous. I take it out whenever I have a tough day, just to remind me why I do what I do. So gratitude is not about very expensive things. It's about the thought behind the thing. So this is the one that I cherish. I received this from students years and years ago, and I still love it, and I keep it, and I just wanted to share that with everyone. Without any further ado, I think we are going to continue our conversation on gratitude. And I want to welcome all of our high achievers today. And we are going to start with the introductions, the way I see you guys on my screen, with Amy first and Dr. Susan on deck. Hi, Amy, if you could tell us who you are and why you're here.
Sure. So my name's Amy Catch. I'm based in Los Angeles. And I have revenue responsibility for a healthcare IT company. I've spent most of my career driving revenues for early growth companies in a number of different sectors, but the last 15 years have been in healthcare IT. So that's a little bit about me. And, I miss my Renaissance weekends and my Renaissance peeps. So that's why I'm here.
Welcome. We're so happy you're here.
Thank you.
Dr. Susan with Liana on deck.
Hi, I am Dr. Susan Bernstone, and it's so interesting because I don't know, many of us may feel the same way, but when you were talking about even just the title, like why were we here as high achievers, in some ways I don't consider myself a high achiever. I didn't win a Nobel Prize, and in fact I was talking earlier to Chris actually about this, that sometimes it's like even the Nobel Prize winners don't consider themselves high achievers, and I think that in many ways it's like, how do we define success in our culture? So, here I am on this call. I'm here because I love being with you guys. I'm grateful to Ruth. I'm grateful to all of you. It's a great discussion. I feel honored and privileged, actually, to be able to share what I can. And I'm always amazed, actually, when people go, wow, I really appreciated what you said. And so it reminds me that I am making an impact, and even if it's on one person. So for me, it's about being grateful, being here, and knowing that something I say could be of use to somebody. So I'm grateful for that, and also it's about teaching people that we are successful. We all are successful, and you don't need to win that Nobel Prize to be successful. So whatever you're doing, as long as you're doing, you're successful in my book. So that's a whole nother discussion we can have another time. So I'm grateful again to Ruth and for being here, and look forward to the discussion.
I can tell you, Susan, that before I found who the most successful people were, I had to define success. And what I can tell you is that it's a moving target depending on who you ask. But you didn't tell everyone what your day job is, what you do.
All right, so I do a couple of things. One is I am a therapist, individual, family, group therapist. So I help people. I help people to think better about themselves, feel better, people who are not comfortable in their own skin. I help them to get comfortable and understand why and why it makes sense. And I help people to be their own best friends and help people improve their relationships. And my other day and night job is I'm a television talk show producer and host. And so some of the people on this call have been on my show or will be on my call on my show. I currently have 2 shows on public access. One is called Your Voice with Dr. Susan, and the other is the Mentor Project. And many of you, well, we are here because of the Mentor Project. And for the Mentor Project, I'm producing and hosting a show that's going to be all over the country on public access. We just went on live in Brooklyn, and we're in the middle of being broadcast in North Carolina. And within the next year, we're going to be all across the country, as well as probably Your Voice with Dr. Susan on many different platforms. So thank you for asking.
Thanks. Liana, you're up, and Janice, you're on deck.
Hi, Ruth. Oh my God, I'm so happy to be here.
Flowers.
I know. You got Liana'd.
I got Liana'd. It's a verb.
I am so delighted that that's even the possibility, has the possibility of a verb. So I am Liana. I am an image therapist. I combined, about 40 years ago, I combined the domain of image consulting and the domain of therapy, because I believe that every human being is a masterpiece exactly the way they are. And you don't need to change or lose weight or dye your hair or get a bigger butt or get a bigger boob size. Just be who you are, because everyone else is taken. How about you just be you and I be me, and we're good. So a lot of people don't see themselves as a masterpiece. And when we go inside and stop comparing ourselves to other people, just look at who we are and have the acceptance and the awareness and some gratitude for that, magic happens. So I love gratitude. I think it is the most, it's the most wonderful chemical factory in my brain, because when I go from guilt to gratitude, something absolutely magical happens. You know, you start smiling, you start feeling like you're walking on air. So anytime you talk about gratitude, I'll be there. And one of the things, Ruth, that, you know, you talk about flowers, beauty, I believe, is our birthright. And we don't talk about that enough, because we soak in the world through all of our senses. And when our eyes look at something beautiful, there's something inside us that absolutely relaxes and just becomes so sensual and wonderful. So thank you for putting flowers next to your gorgeous face.
You don't want to know how many I sent back.
That's okay. It's fine. It's just like clothes. You buy 100 and you keep 15.
We'll see. Janice and Pam, you're on deck.
Hi, I'm Janice Lintz. I'm the CEO of Hearing Access and Innovations. So I help to make the world accessible for people with hearing loss. The taxi behind me is one of the projects in New York City that I worked on. I'm also traveling to every country in the world until the pandemic. I've been to 194 countries, territories, and disputed nations. And I agree with Susan. I remember being at Renaissance Weekend and speaking to the Nobel laureate who was recreating the Big Boom. And I was sitting at breakfast and I'm thinking, why is this man talking to me? And first off, I have no idea what he's saying. Like, absolutely no idea. He's explaining something. I had missed the article in the New York Times that week, which of course my daughter knew about. And it turned out he needed hearing aids and needed to understand the whole market. And so the whole time I'm thinking, I can't believe this man is speaking to me, right? This man just won a Nobel Prize. And he was interested in hearing aids. And that happens shockingly regular, especially once you hit a certain age group of people. And it is always surprising to me, because I think last time I told the story about Bob Woodward in Chile, who spoke to me, and I was like the most exciting conversation I've ever had with anyone. So I'm always grateful. And I think that's part of, I love what I do. And so I think part of the gratitude is just loving what you do and being grateful that you get to do what you do.
But didn't I remember I said they're intrinsically motivated. They would do it for free if they could.
I do. Most of the time I really sadly.
Right. And a lot of the advocacy work is free.
Yeah, my advocacy work is all free, and lately it's full advocacy work. So, but I love what I do, and I don't mind doing it for free because I'd like to get paid. Yeah, but I love what I do. And I can't imagine doing anything else.
And people will get a chance to hear about how far Janice has gone to get her mission accomplished. So you guys can read about it tomorrow in Forbes. It'll be up. So be on the lookout for that.
It's a really funny story.
It's a great one. Pam and Bruce, you're on deck. And I'm so excited we have Pam because we're going to talk about gratitude, and she has studied positive psychology.
Have I done it? Am I there?
You are.
Good. Well, I guess that takes me off the high achiever list, at least from a muted standpoint. No, I'm thrilled to be here because I would do anything that Ruth asked me to do. And I also feel, as other people have said, that it's nice to be around people who achieve as much or more than you do, so that you feel as if you're, moving down the path as well. I also had one of those Renaissance moments when I sat at a table on New Year's Eve in between the other Dr. Ruth and the Vint Cerf who coded the internet, and they asked me what I was going to do for the new year, and I thought, wait, you're asking, this is not about me. You're very important, and so it really does sort of come full circle, because not only did I feel as if, who am I to be here, but at the same time, they literally did one of those People magazine, they're just like us moments, what is your New Year's resolution? And I thought, wow, they are real people. And so I love every chance I get to be around people as wonderful as everybody on this call. It's interesting to me because gratitude, what I do in my day job, I'm a corporate behavioral psychologist, and I work with companies around a lot of times diversity and inclusion, maybe leadership, culture, any of that, because I used to be a banker. So I can't differentiate between doing things for people and doing things for performance and profit. Those two things must interrelate. And it otherwise, it's never going to. It's one of those breaks in the symbiotic relationship. So it's interesting to me because gratitude is one of those things that multiplies things. Whenever you think about people who are feeling, and I think we sometimes synonymously use the word gratitude with awe or just sort of feeling good. I think that there's something very important about the canister of notes that you have, because you can, it's sort of like a little meditation of sorts that you can be mindful of. So there's all these synonymous pieces to gratitude, but they make us more of who we are. And in the workplace, that's a very important concept, because we want active engagement. We want innovation. We want rising superstars. We want talent retention. And one of the most amazing ways to make people feel as if they belong, they're valued, their skills are necessary, is to be grateful. And I think we just push right past that a lot of the times when we need it the most, because productivity is always necessary. But at the expense of gratitude, I think in the workplace is a price that's way too high. So my sincere appreciation and gratitude for being included in this, because I think that's one of those important things that we can do as people, and certainly in the workplace.
Thanks. And I'm glad you're here to join us, because I think it's very important also to have the positive psychology thought behind gratitude. So you're going to really underscore a lot of what we talk about.
Sure.
Which is great.
I'll just say one more thing in that regard. Gratitude is one of the two interventions that does not go away over time. You don't get used to it, and you don't, sort of poo-poo it or minimize minimize it. It actually continually gives, if you will, which I think is awesome.
Oh, and what's the other one?
Well, the other one is mindfulness. Those two things are, they don't the hedonic treadmill where you get used to that and you want the next gold ring. These two do not fall into that category. So mindfulness and gratitude are two things that are very important practices because they do not go away over time. They always work.
Interesting. Wow. Thank you. Dr. Bruce Wiley.
Yes. Hi, Ruth. Hi, everyone. Glad to be back. So I'm a professor of health policy management. I also direct a team that does computer modeling, where we develop computer models to help address many different health and public health issues. I'm also the founder and CEO of a company that does that type of work as well. And we've worked with many different types of decision makers around the world to address many different types of health and healthcare issues. I'm also a writer and journalist covering healthcare. I'm a senior contributor to Forbes. So I do a lot of science communications as well.
And today the communication was OMG, all about the acronyms, the overuse of acronyms in healthcare.
Yes. So there's a study that's found in science in general, but also healthcare, that the use of acronyms has exploded like TNT. They didn't say specifically TNT, but that's an acronym too. To the point where acronyms are like everywhere, and many of these some of these acronyms are common, like DNA or MRI or HIV or things like that. But they found that many acronyms are only being used only once or twice, or sometimes no more than 10 times. So that means that people are making up acronyms, so it's not quite clear whether people really understand what each other's saying. So very interested in sort of reversing that trend and trying to make science more understandable by everyone.
You know, when I read that article, all I kept thinking about is every time we write grants and we want to introduce a new concept, we have to come up with some neat acronym that it'll stand for, because it has to be catchy. So
exactly, that's actually more important in the project, right? If you got the right acronym, then everything's all set.
Exactly right. And then behind the black square, we have our fearless leader, Dr. Debbie Heiser, who is the founder and CEO of the Mentor Project, and really the reason we are all here. So I want to thank in advance Dr. Debbie Heiser and take a look at the Mentor Project. It's mentorproject.org, I believe. I think that's the website. Yes, I gotta clap hands and a thumbs up. mentorproject.org. And then last but certainly not least, our most requested return guest. Chris, take it away. Where are you, Chris? You look like you're in a backyard somewhere.
Yes, I'm in our garden here in Chelsea. So when the COVID is over, we'll have to all do a big bonfire back here, low country boil, maybe some shrimp and grits, that kind of stuff. Would love to have y'all.
Persian food. Remember?
Yes.
Shrimp and grits.
Okay, Liana does all the cooking. I'm going to
come to the cooking.
I can just drink and have a good time. Excited to be back, Ruth. So honored to be amongst company that I need to join for Renaissance Weekend. I guess I do have a Renaissance Weekend story, but I've never been. So
wait, before you tell that, so a lot of the people who are watching us live don't know what Renaissance Weekend is.
It's a gathering of which I should never be invited to, of some of the world's most interesting people. And no, so if you're watching the Renaissance Weekend, of which all these good folks go to, it brings together Nobel Prize winners, presidents, kings, queens, the best people of industry. They get together for a raucous good time where they have lots of seminars and keynotes and workshops and lots of opportunities for serendipitous networking and all that kind of jazz. But my small Renaissance story is that I grew up on Hilton Head Island, where Renaissance originated. Dr. Phil Lader is one of our family's best friends. I just had never heard anybody outside of Hilton Head talk about him. I didn't know him as anything but like he's Phil later from the island. But on the island, our family's been there since the dawn of time on the island. My uncle was the first mayor. All of this, literally, Renaissance Weekend started in our backyard, literally at the hotel, 100 yards from our home. So every time the president would come into town to go to Renaissance, we would handle all his accommodations, him and his entire team. We'd take over our entire street. And so every morning, the president and Buddy the dog and whoever.
You're talking about Clinton.
President Clinton, yeah. So way back at the inception kind of moments. But President Clinton would send his goons up to the house to grab me, and I'd walk down the beach every morning of Renaissance Weekend for all those years playing catch with Buddy the dog, as the rest of the press was criticizing a president for taking a beach vacation. So that's my one Renaissance Weekend story. But no, honored to be here.
We'll have to have someone nominate you.
Exactly. That sounds good to me. But no, we're honored to be here. Gratitude is our entire life. We've used gratitude as a tool to spark over 400,000 relationships around our dinner table in the last 5 years. We wrote a book called Gratitude and Pasta, The Secret Sauce for Human Connection, of which Forbes magazine ranked as the #2 book of the year to create connection. So it's everything we research. It's everything we believe in. And so honored to be having the conversation. Second week in a row.
Thank you for joining us again. And you're back in New York.
We made it back.
We made it back.
Safe and sound. Now I'm back in quarantine, but that's all right. That's a whole nother thing.
Ah, okay. So you are our gratitude guru, and I'm hoping we could kick off the discussion. Everyone has or should have someone who has greatly helped them and influenced them. And I told you all of these high achievers never would have gotten to this place on their own, right? Never would have gotten to their heightened success. And I'm wondering nice, Chris. I am wondering for each of you if there was somebody who really made an impact on your life and on your career, and how you were able to, if you were able to show them gratitude, how that was. And just speak up. I don't want to call on you. Just if there was someone, who is that someone? Go ahead, Janice.
I had four older ladies. So when I was working and starting in hearing access, like I never planned to do this as a career. Everybody else had a career. This was something I was doing on behalf of my daughter that morphed into a career. But I met a woman, Arlene Romoff, at a conference and was discussing with her, and she seemed to know all the history of what happened before me, before I arrived. And it was very helpful having that information, because rather than reinventing the wheel, I was able to, stand on her shoulders. Mm-hmm. And then she introduced me to 3 other women. And so they've become we called ourselves, one dropped away out of it. But the remaining 4 of us, we were like the 4 musketeers. And so I'm regularly, when I write articles, they will edit to make sure that we hash it out. And we will have like real hash outs. Like there's one person of the 4, Nancy, she's very less out there than I am. And she'll like rein me in. And then someone else Carol Grinaldi, who's really funny. She'll always have a funny zinger. So if, I don't have, I'll need to reach out to Bruce for my funny zingers for the articles. But like it's just been amazing. And so I've always tried to thank them throughout any time I'm receiving credit, because it always looks like I'm just doing this myself. And every single project that I've done is either these women or other people, depending on the project. And I always try to give credit to everyone, because of the work that I do, I'm regularly putting my head on the chopping block, like regularly. It's almost like my occupation is really not hearing access. It's, can you put your head on the chopping block? And like most people don't want to do this, and they're not willing to do it. And I, for some insane reason, am very comfortable doing this. And so as a result, people won't say or put themselves out there, and I am. So, but the reason I'm so knowledgeable is because everyone feeds me information. So I always try to credit everyone, although I am the only one putting my head on the chopping block.
But see, Janice, what you talk about is, I think, is very important, because it's the gratitude. But I think what you're able to do is take all these pieces of information, these random pieces, and connect the dots. And that's, I think, what sets you apart, is that you're able to connect the dots of all these random pieces of information.
That is, I would say, my superpower, is connecting all these random disparate dots. Yes.
That's high achievers, Janice. And that's why you're here.
Didn't even know that. That and I think you need to add putting your head on the chopping block as another, the willingness to do that.
Fear not trying more than they fear failing.
Yeah. Oh, I guess
also known as putting your head on the chopping
block.
block.
I guess that falls onto that. Yeah, right? That's true. Fair point. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Who else has one?
Go
ahead, Liana.
Oh, go ahead, Liana.
You know, it's so interesting, because I start getting access to things that I don't think about on a regular basis, you know, and these conversations about gratitude. I mean, I live my life in gratitude in so many ways. And then there's these moments where I look at something and I go, how did I know that? And where did I get that? And I trace it back, you know, to a moment. Like, I worked for many, many years. And this is in regards to being grateful to your mentors. Like, I have so many moments during the day where I stop and take a breath and go, wow, this whole thing with COVID, you know, we are all pivoting, trying to put our businesses online. 7 years ago, Jack Canfield, who's a good friend and a good mentor, he said to me, Liana, you have to put this online. This is so necessary. All over the world, people need to watch you. And I did, and I listened. And every single day inside of this whole pandemic, I've said to him, and I say to him, I am so grateful to you, because I think it's not just the fact that they mentor us. It's the fact that they get us to listen to them. You know, a good mentor isn't just a good mentor because he's guiding you in a certain direction, but we as students, when we are students, we are often stubborn and we can't hear it. So, you know, it's like I think about these moments, and now, you know, you call us high achievers. I just call myself stubborn. And I think that's a big part of it. You know, it's like, I want to find out, I want to learn. And then when I see my own students being that way, I'm like, yeah, you've got all the makings of someone who's going to succeed. And a lot of it has to do with it just going, you know, just going around the rock, you know, not letting the rock stop us. And then looking at someone else and going, how did you get there? And what do I need to do? And, you know, just, it's really beautiful on a daily basis to go back to the mentors that we've had.
Absolutely.
And just, you know, I look at Bob Mackey. I worked with Bob Mackey for many, many years. And, you know, Cher would come in and she would just go, so how did you do that? And we would all be listening. And it's like, sometimes as a student, when the mentor is there, all you have to do is just watch and listen. There isn't even, okay, well, I'm just going to pick your brain, you know? And I think a lot of those interactions are things I certainly don't have access to it on a daily basis. And these conversations with you, Ruth, and the mentor projects are bringing a lot of that back into my awareness. So I'm just really grateful for this. And the acknowledgement of it, you know? We don't go to our mentors often. I have one mentor that I call and I say, my living gratitude to you is the way that I'm living my life now, because the embodiment and the willingness to show up fully with all the passion and all the talent that I have to give, I think that's the best way to be grateful to what I've learned from everyone that I've learned from. So
absolutely. That was beautiful.
I'm grateful.
Pam, I'm dying to hear.
Oh, well, everybody that says something makes me think of something else, and it's so wonderful. When I think back about my own gratitude journal, which I do every night, thinking about who I'm grateful for throughout the day, you would find millions of people in there. You would find the man on the corner that I don't know that smiled at me, that made me happy that day. And I cannot even go back and tell you all of those names. But one of the things I remember, it's raining so hard now, I don't know how Chris is out there, but I
He looks happy.
I know. Well, he's grateful for the rain, I'm sure. But I think it's interesting because, when one of the things I know about gratitude in general is that it's even better when delivered in person or, written by hand out so that it comes out your body onto the paper. Every moment of gratitude that comes closer to the person makes it even that much stronger, I think, because gratitude gives back to you as well as to the person. So obviously being near that person is great. So the one that I came up with for this is really just because we started and talked about Renaissance and the Clintons. When I was in my career, and I think we've done a lot of associating gratitude with our mentors, when I was backstage at an event for women in leadership and was about to go on to speak, I was nervous, and it was early in my career when I was coming from being a part of the team to being the figurehead for my company. And that moment was different because it wasn't about, no, it wasn't me, it was everybody. And I had my people saying, no, you have to go out and take the credit because we need you to figurehead this. It's Pam who's doing this, even if we're helping. And that was so hard for me. And I explained this to Hillary Clinton. Not in so many words, but just she asked me something and I answered her to some aspect of that. And she said, well, you have much more than you have in terms of ability to do this. And she said, but I hear you saying that you think you need to have the answer, and that I need to be the figurehead and it's all me and I have to take credit and all that. And she said, just think of it this way. You don't need to be the man who has the answer. You just need to be the woman who knows what's going on. And it allowed me to fall into myself, who liked to share the credit, but not forget that I was the one who knew what was going on, but that I wasn't the only one with the answer. And it blew my mind, really. And then, of course, I was even more nervous because I forgot what I was supposed to say on stage almost. And I've never been able to tell her that. So the fact that you would go back and tell the person,
say it again.
I have not been able to do that. So
well, say it again. What that sentence is. We'll amplify so she'll hear it.
She said, you don't need to be the man who has the answer. You should be the woman who knows what's going on.
Well,
it was wonderful because here we were at a Women in Leadership conference, and I was sort of equating this needing to have the answer, and I must have said something about men or women or something. And when she said that, it resonated with me because I knew that I could be like me and run the business. That I didn't have to be the one, that I could just know, what everybody, nice. It's just a wonderful, way to look at it. But if I could
well, maybe she'll listen. She lives not far from here. So it reminds me of what Chris said last week. Chris, what was that quote you said about those who are humble and think of themselves?
I forgot I said that last week. I was about to say it to Pam. That's so funny. No,
say it again.
That's so funny. No, gratitude is a great tool for removing the ego and developing humility, because people with humility, they don't think less of themselves. They just think about themselves less. So you can think the world of yourself and still, be the catalyst for others to have the spotlight. That's the cool part about gratitude. I forgot I said that last week. That's good. Good memory.
Hey, Chris, why did you get into this field? What was your catalyst for getting into the gratitude field?
It was July of 2015. I had just come back from Italy after producing a Broadway play there, and when I got back to New York City, realized I essentially felt four things about my life: lonely, unfulfilled, disconnected, insecure. I realized the last time I had felt those four things at once led me down a deep, dark path of suicide, depression, jail, and rehab. And I didn't want to go back there. And Italy had changed my life. I saw the world through a whole new lens after coming back from Rome and learning that language. And so I thought back, what was it about Italy that created that change? It was the food. So I started playing around in my kitchen, accidentally created a pasta sauce recipe and figured we should probably feed it to people to see if it's even good or not, and started hosting dinners. And every week, new people would come into our home, 15 to 20 people at a time. 6:30 p.m., cocktails would begin. 8 p.m., dinner was served. But at 7:47 p.m., we'd put the pasta in the pot and delegate 11 specific tasks to get everybody to work together to create the meal. We created a night where people didn't come to be served. They came to serve others. And so at that very first dinner, we asked a simple question. Instead of asking a question about our attendees, we wanted to give them the platform to share stories of others, because we had created an entire experience about others to begin with. Serve others, talk about others, that kind of thing. So at the very first dinner, we asked a simple question. If you could give credit or thanks to one person in your life that you've never given any credit or thanks to, or not given enough credit or thanks to, who would that be? And the rest is history. I got bullied into it.
What do you mean?
It's a great question, Ruth. I mean that in that moment, I awoke. Thanks. We're good. I awoke to such a tremendous amount of need to use that question and those principles to serve others that I would just never forgive myself if I didn't devote the rest of my life to doing so. And I felt it as a moral obligation, and we luckily we found the calling, and we've been doing it ever since. But at that very first dinner, and at really all the dinners ever since, if less than 6 people cry, we consider it a failed night. And so once I realized the impact it had, and once I realized that gratitude had saved my own life, then I just couldn't back away.
I'm going to need the help of Dr. Susan and Pam on this one, because I don't usually get speechless, but I'm speechless here. Susan, can you help me out here a little?
Sure. It's a great story. It's Chris. And I'm just going to do a plug just because I don't usually, but Chris is actually going to be on my show on Wednesday. So if you want to hear more about him, tune in on Wednesday at 6:00 to be on, Ask Dr. Susan. I didn't know what else to say, so that's why I'm answering that. But, I think
it's called buying time.
Right. So many things about what Chris said in there. He used, and Chris has heard me talk about this, and other people have heard me talking about this. What he did was he reflected his own experience. And he did the work in terms of, he looked at, what he went through and said, all right, well, what do I need in this moment? What's going on with me, and what do I need? And he took, there's so much in that. He took care of himself. And, it's interesting because I had developed a technique to help people right now through all of this. It was a quick thing, and it's called the SNAP technique. And in some ways, Chris did that.
Would that be an acronym, Susan? It's
an acronym. Look at that, Bruce. I'm using the acronym. And I developed it from needing an acronym because I didn't. And the other, what I was basing it on, which is so funny, Chris, there's an acronym called RAIN that is used. And it didn't
say rain.
Rain. Yes, that's what I'm saying, Chris. So I based my SNAP because RAIN is used and it's very effective for a lot of people. It just didn't resonate with me, even though I agreed with the purpose. So I sat and said, I need another acronym. So I developed it I came up with SNAP. And I was like, oh, that's pretty snappy and catchy, and SNAP is used in so many different ways. So I'm not going to get into it here. But what I love what Chris did was he has this unbelievable journey, hard times, awful things go on. He goes to Italy, produces a show, whatever. I don't even know all the details, but just in what he just said. And then he comes back and he's like, he checked in with himself, like, what's going on with me? I'm feeling all these things, and I don't want to do these actions. I want to do something else. What works? What do I need from me right now? And he's like, I need to mess around in the kitchen. I need to invite people over. I need to have a conversation with people. And then voila, he just went with it. And so that was just really like amazing. And I just want to ask, I just want to add, because in what there was a couple of people that talked about this in terms of not being like, Pam, you were not directly able to yet thank Hillary yet for what. We'll arrange this. We're going to make this happen.
And if there's a group that can do it, it's this group.
Right, absolutely. And Chris definitely can do this. So
Chris will take a walk with the dog.
Person who, it's interesting because two people came to mind for me in terms of who I did not have an opportunity yet to thank directly. Some of you may know him. His name is Ira Glass. He's on NPR. He's created he's a broadcaster, created a radio show, This American Life. And he has a quote that's very widely known. It's a very, very long quote, so I can't read it, but we'll put in the link later where to get it. And what happened for me was the short version. As I said, I was in the mental health field for many, many years, but I always had this desire to do media work. And I realized that actually, even in my therapy work, I'm an artist, and I'm really very artistic. And what his quote is, and he talks about, is that we get into this work, we all get into whatever work we're doing because we have a vision, and we're really good at this vision. But when we first start out, what we create is not what's in our head. And there's a disconnect between what we're producing and what's in our head. But and he says this, but it's our taste that got us in there, but it takes a while. And he talks about this middle section that, it could be a day, it could be a year, it could be 20 years, but that we all get to it where there's this middle section that you need to just plow through. You need to keep doing it, whether it's writing, whether it's producing content, whatever that middle is, when it's just not good enough. And then you got to stay with it. And he talks about how in this middle section, a lot of people stop. They don't continue because it's not what they want it to be. And you have to just keep going. And when I read that, I was like, it freed me up to continue, because what I wanted certain things to be, and I'm a reformed perfectionist. I'm a Virgo still, but I'm a reformed perfectionist. And so or recovering, I should say. And so that quote stayed with me. And every now and then when I'm doing something that just doesn't feel good enough or look good enough to me, and it's not what I want it to be, I pull out that quote. And he doesn't know. And I actually saw him live, but I didn't have an opportunity to connect with him. And it's whenever I feel it's not what I want it to be, whatever that is, I'll literally pull out the quote and read it, and it gets me excited. I'm like, I could stay with it. And, Ruth, when you talked about what some of the characteristics of successful people, we stay with it. We keep going. We persevere. We find it. And we don't give up, right? We don't.
Yeah, it's so true, Susan. Pam, by the way, what I wanted to just give you is this. I talked about Jack Canfield because there's a very simple story. When I first came to the States from Germany, I read his book. And I wrote in my journal, one day I'm going to have dinner with this man. And 25 years, it took 25 years. And then one night I was teaching on his stage for 4 years. I was teaching his Train the Trainer, and we sat next to each other at his house at a dinner. And I leaned over and I said, Jack, 25 years ago, I wrote this in my journal, and I've been holding that in my heart for 25 years that you and I are going to have dinner together.
I love it.
And it's don't give this thing that Susan just said, reminded me, it's the constantly keeping the flame alive. And you will be sitting next to Hillary Clinton, or you come to me, and when Oprah's sitting on my couch, then you and I will have a conversation.
The article, it's my couch.
And your couch, okay, your couch. But what I'm saying is that we all hold this for one another. We become the vessel for all these beautiful visions and gratitude and acknowledgement and Chris's amazing dinner party and cooking. And, it's like, that's how it gets born. It's get manifested.
Well, and I think it's funny because Oprah and many others were at the same event. So it's like, I wouldn't meet any of them because they were all very kind. We're always in the same circles when I'm speaking, but I never quite get up to them. I was going to say something about what Chris said that just echoes really what I heard from everyone before. There's something in positive psychology about finding meaning, and from trauma meaning can come. And it's interesting. It's not the only way to get meaning, and it's not the only way to find purpose, but many times from trauma or from, mishaps or negativity or bad times comes meaning. And some people can't get there, which I think was, Dr. Susan's point about, you have to get out of that moment where it's going badly or you have to go push through it. But it's interesting because one of the people in my grad school class was talking about the idea of PTSD and, post-traumatic stress. She also talked about, she did hers on post-traumatic ecstasy. So the idea that you could move from trauma to levels of ecstasy and gratitude and feeling good and all of that. And I don't have any of the scientific research, at hand here, but it was a really interesting study because the emotionality of people that can do that can come through and find meaning in those moments and find gratitude. That's how a lot of people get their gratitude, is having been worse off and, feel gratitude for greater things. But it's such an interesting thing because that is so much more of somebody's spirit than just the story. It just means everything about how they make decisions and how they move through life and all of their magic and what makes them marvelous. And so it's, I think Chris's story is bigger than just the story. It's a moment where someone made meaning out of being bullied into it, and stuck with it, because that's how the world gets people that we're in awe of, are, through some of those trying circumstances. And so thank you, Chris, for sharing that.
If you don't mind me interjecting, I want to compliment what Pam dedicates her life to in positive psychology and its impact on this conversation. You mentioned interventions, right? As we know, positive psychology interventions are meant to do four things: develop optimism, develop self-efficacy, develop hope, and develop self-confidence. And essentially, when you can have gratitude for a negative life experience that's an open memory from your past, and you bring that forth to the present and you talk about it, it lowers the impact that it has over you. And the positive emotion that you create through gratitude will far outlast the negative emotion that's associated with that trauma. Those aren't my researches, but like Robert Emmons and Franz de Waal and Barbara Ellen's, what is it? Barbara Fredrickson. Yeah. So they all have the greatest things, to talk about, which is so cool. I used to sit on the national board of a wonderful organization called Easter Seals. We've been around for 101 years. We serve about 2 million people a year, mainly in autism and ADHD now. But we used to have these wonderful folks with autism that are on the spectrum would come to our dinners. And what would happen is when it would come around to the gratitude question would actually rewire their brain, right? Gratitude is proven to broaden and build the brain's thought action repertoire needed for curiosity, creativity, collaboration, trust, loyalty, all this kind of stuff. And historically, people on the spectrum that couldn't even really communicate their feelings could actually answer the gratitude question. One of the coolest things that's happened through COVID is that my girlfriend's sister, whose name is Hope, who was born with mental and physical disabilities. She's had over 100 different surgeries in her lifetime. she has been to pretty much we do the client dinners, but we also do free dinners for our community. And she's been to almost every single one of them. And she just gives gratitude every night. And I've actually heard from their family that they've seen an increase in her ability to communicate outside of the dinner after having done the gratitude exercise. So gratitude is this like mystical fucking creature. It is a wacky ass. Actually, you know what? Talking about trauma. Actually, just today, I just randomly had my notes. We had 3 client dinners we had to produce today for what the last one that we did was a 5:30 to 7 p.m. one, and then I got on this, and we had someone in the group had 24 different people pass away in 2 years. 24. Her name is Sue. And she said that she'd like to give gratitude to death and not gratitude to the dead. Because death in itself has taught her so much about life. Yes, the people who passed away taught her tremendous things, but she gave gratitude to the institution of death and what that's taught her about being present. And she said that the greatest present you can give is your presence, and that she promises to be more present with gratitude going forward because of what death has given her in the recent past. And so talk about using trauma to create opportunity. She's going to go out and use that as inspiration and motivation to do so much better good in our world than she would have ever set a goal to do, ever.
Chris, so, I agree with you 100% because, I mean, that's how I did hearing access. Was I had a son who died. And from having a son who died, I then used, I stopped listening to experts. I started listening to my gut. And so I decided, I have 2 mantras. I have a few mantras, but 2 of them are never waste a crisis and turn obstacles into opportunities. So after he died, when my daughter was diagnosed with a hearing loss, that's how I was able to say, I'm not listening to everyone, because if I hadn't listened to that doctor, I wonder if he would be alive. And so in some ways, not that I wouldn't want him back, but you push through it. And I think it's like each time you go through a crisis, it forces you to reevaluate what's going on in your life. So like when I had cancer and I couldn't speak for 5 months, 2 years ago, yeah. Can you imagine me not speaking? Like that's like almost like impossible. Like no one can possibly imagine that. Like I'm just a talker. It forced me to say, okay, what's my priority? And that's when I did the 2-year trip. That now, especially post with the pandemic, I am so grateful I did that, because who knows when I'm going to travel again. It was so hard to do and plan that into my schedule. And I just said, you know what? I don't really care. I mean, so I think sometimes bad stuff happens, but it's what you do with the bad stuff that defines you as a person.
Absolutely. Guys, I think we have the topic for our talk next week. I think we're going to talk about overcoming obstacles and how is it that high achievers do it? Because remember I said they go over it, under it, through it, around it, but they definitely get to the other side. And I mean, I know, Janice, I didn't know about all of this. I've spoken to Chris before, but I didn't know about all this on this background. And I think those who want to share how they overcame different obstacles, you'll see that they have found the opportunity. They have found the silver lining. Even during COVID, I think that every single person has found a sliver of hope. And I think it would be very interesting to hear how all these people really are getting through it. When I left my little box, my little screen, I saw out of the corner of my eye my doctoral dissertation. Yes, it's that. Yeah, it's that thick. And I think it's 230 pages.
What is it on? What did you write it on?
Optimizing success of physician scientists. I looked at the most successful physician scientists of our generation. So that's what started it all, the Nobel laureates and all that. after you defend your dissertation, which is the most anxiety-producing thing I have ever faced, you have to write your acknowledgement section of your dissertation. And it's usually 1 page, and mine is 3 pages long. I literally, and I haven't looked at this for quite a while. I thanked everybody. But I started it off with a quote from Albert Einstein that said, "I am thankful for all those who said no to me. It's because of them I'm doing it myself." And the reason I did that is because I was 43 years old when I decided to pursue my doctorate. I was working full time. I had a family. I had more people tell me I couldn't do it than tell me I could do it. So this is the 3 pages is really thanks to all those who actually helped me do it, because you can't do this by yourself. And one of them is, many of you met her a few episodes ago. It's Dr. Marie Volpe, who was my doctoral dissertation advisor. And I just thought I would read the few sentences. She didn't see this until after I passed. And by the way, she is 83 years old. So I wrote, Dr. Marie Volpe, my mentor, my advisor, my biggest critic and greatest supporter. You raised the bar so high that I wondered for a fleeting moment if it was even attainable. With your unrelenting guidance, support, emails, and countless FaceTime chats, you invigorated me, lit a spark in me, and motivated me to do my best work. Every time I sent you a chapter, I did so with a bit of trepidation. Making you proud was another goal in this journey. Without a shadow of a doubt, you are the master of this process. You have an impeccable mind, a sharp tongue, and a keen sense of humor. You are also incredibly fair. You could always read my face and know if I disagreed with you or was uncomfortable with your suggestion. We talked it through until we were both content with the choices that were made. I often told you that you remind me of my grandma Esther. That's the biggest compliment I can ever give someone. And that's what I wrote to her in the acknowledgement section. So you guys met her, so you saw a little piece of that. Very special. So we are at the end of our hour, if you can believe it. So if everyone wants to hear more about you or to connect with you, because I know a lot of people are getting connected. We're making all these connections. People want to find out more about you. Janice, where can they reach out to you?
They can reach me at hearingaccess.com or at janicelintz.com.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. This
Thanks.
is so much fun.
And we'll see your article. Find out why Janice wrote to the Queen of England and got a response. That's tomorrow in Forbes. Bruce, where can people learn more about you?
BruceYLee.com. My website. You can also Google Bruce Wiley and Forbes to find my articles, and I'm on Twitter at Bruce_Y_Lee.
Thank you. Pam.
I think you're on mute.
No, you're on mute, Pam.
Sorry, I thought I had taken it off. Pamela at authentum.com, AUTHENTUM.
I love that.
Thank you. Dr. Susan.
It's Dr. Susan Bernstone, BIRNE-Stone, STONE. You can Google me. You can look up Your Voice with Dr. Susan. You can go to the Mentor Project. There's lots of different ways. And you can tune in Wednesday night at 6 o'clock.
Thank you. Liana.
Hi, I wanted to say something to Chris. Allora parli italiano, possiamo parlare in italiano, come sai?
Sì.
Va bene.
Ho studiato per 4 settimane, 5 anni.
Wow, look at you! 4 settimane, ma ti senti bene? So I can be reached at betheoffer.com, meaning you'll get a really beautiful video gift. Or you can email me at Liana, Liana, at imagetherapists with an S at the end, plural, imagetherapists.com.
Thank you.
And Pam, you and I have to talk.
Yes, I need to be Liana.
Don't we all?
Chris in the rain.
Chris, So if anybody's watching and you're a friend of Ruth's, or you mentioned you want to be a friend of Ruth's, and you would like to come to one of our virtual dinners, we do all our client work with our virtual dinners, but we still host a virtual dinner once a month for our community. The next one's on August 25th. So if you'd like to come, you'll meet 50 to 60 amazing folks just engaging in gratitude and having a good time. So just email David, don't email me, David at 747club.org.
Thank you. Amy, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming, and I hope next time we can hear more about your work and what you do. And I want to also thank Dr. Debbie Heiser behind the black square. Debbie, you want to give a shout out? People can find you on Mentor Project.
Oh, thank you, Ruth. You can find all the wonderful mentors, including Ruth and many people here, at mentorproject.org. And you can find us also on Facebook, The Mentor Project.
Thank you. And I am Dr. Ruth Gotian, and I can be found at ruthgotian.com. And on all the social media, it's just my name, Ruth Gotian, RuthGotian. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thank you to all of our listeners and sponsors who have made this podcast possible. You can find out more about Dr. Ruth Gotian to optimize your success, live events held every Monday at 8 p.m. EST, by going to our Facebook page at The Mentor Project. I am Jack Scott, the Chief Operations Officer here at The Mentor Project and the host of Meet Your Mentor, which posts every Wednesday. If you're interested in working with The Mentor Project, please reach out to us by going through our website at mentorproject.org. We look forward to seeing you back here next week to learn more about how you can optimize your success.